like queue it up on there,
Okay.
and then people will have like the app.
And then you'll just ask the questions that they're asking online.
Morning.
Like we did the other day.
Thank you guys for coming. I'm John. I'm with the Rincon Transfer Station. We have Neil Merchant and Gene About. And today we're going to tell you our story about how we modernize our private transfer station. So first, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the security challenges we're facing, the electronic waste check-in software. That's kind of our start of the show. And then our next steps, which is going to be the solid waste infrastructure for recycling grant, or SWIFR for short. So here's our reservation. This is in Northern County, San Diego. And right here is this little red circle, and that's our transfer station. So our transfer station is this little diamond on the side in that fence, and then to our right is the Paradise Creek River, which flows into the San Diego River. And here's some pictures of the transfer station just as it was before we started improvements. So some of the challenges that we've been facing are break-ins of the transfer station. We had no eye wash, no faucets to rinse if anybody spilled hazardous waste. The waste check-in was with paper forms. With the paper forms, there was a lot of confusion. People would skip stuff. The accepted waste was not super clear. And then we also would use paper forms, occasionally, and wouldn't be able to track down things came from. With the tires, we also were having an insane amount of tires being let in. We're only supposed to let 8 per travel method per year. We're getting significantly more than that. Spills from tipped and broken containers. With the proximity to the creek that I just showed you guys, we definitely want to make sure that we're making sure that no chemicals permeate the soil. We have very shallow groundwater. I think it's just a few dozen yards and it's groundwater. So, and then we also don't have any storage to cover any of this hazardous waste. It's just all sitting out in the open, just cooking. I'm sure you guys are used to that. And then the labels fade. You can't even tell what was dropped off. So we definitely needed some some solutions. And then the tires would fill up with critters. So when we get the tires removed, the tire crews would find snakes, squirrels, bugs, all those creepy crawlies. They weren't too happy with us. So, let's see. Okay, cool. So a driving force for us needing to upgrade our transfer station was the types of signage that we found. These were dropped off. These are not household hazardous waste. And our hazardous waste contractor was like, yeah, these are going to cost $16,000 to dispose of. And we were like, no. I eventually found some other people that were willing to take it for much less than that, but it was like a year. It took like a year to find somebody to take it for like a decent price. So we needed to switch it to tracking now. So another thing we did without the money from EPA was we supplemented with private funds and we bought a shipping container for our tires. As you can see, we had cracks in the tires just coming in, and that was obviously way more than we needed to be handling for 8 people or 8 tires per person. And then we actually found out that somebody was running an enterprise. That's why we were getting so many tires. They were doing like a tire exchange. Eventually, with the information of the tracking, we were able to catch them and shut the operation down. Now we don't have tires popping up every road. And then also we had like industrial waste, like the tire tracks and the giant oversized like skid steer tires. And like, these are definitely not coming from people's houses. So, anyway, the bin was really nice for also keeping vectors out too. No more snakes, squirrels, rabbits, anything like that. So for the EPA Hazardous Waste Grant, we did it in 2 phases. We did the utility, safety and security, water lines, high wash station, electrification, rolling gate and security cameras. And then we also partnered with Safety Stratus and made our electronic check-in forms. So for the water, electricity, and security upgrades, these are just a few pictures of what we did. For the water lines, we installed 9 nose bibs around the perimeter of the site. And we also installed an eye wash station right next to the household hazardous waste drop-off. And so all you gotta do is hit that little button right there, and you just run over to the paddle, slap it, opens up the lid, which the lid keeps the dust out from the dust transfer station, and then you just stick your trace in there. For the electricity, we put in the electric lines and the water lines together. Our contractors worked for years together on the reservation, so it's easy to coordinate that. We installed 8 120 volt dual outlets, and then 50 amp sub panel about halfway through, just so that we weren't going to have any breaker trips when people are using the extension cords or anything like that. So for the automatic gate was installed with a keypad reader. It also has like a proprietary badge that you could get with it. We have proprietary badges already for our government center building and all of the government buildings on the reservation. So we integrated the badge reader that we use just to get into the front door with this. And so since pending activation, it's activated now, so we're good. And then we installed a button inside the transfer station office so that the attendants could close it at lunch. For the security cameras, we put 8 security cameras over the entire site, basically focusing on the perimeter. And then we also have a quad camera in the center, focusing on the interior. One of the telephoto lenses right here. This one is a license plate reader, and so the license plate reader is awesome when we're trying to basically track who's coming in and out of the transfer station, how many times they can. So it's really convenient. And then this is the Verkada command, which is part of the camera setup. So there's a heat map right here. It shows high points of this is our gate. So obviously a lot of people are driving in and out. It also shows paths that people take. So if you're just skimming on it and you don't want to have to look through 8 hours of footage, you can see oh, somebody walked over there, and that's where I needed to check it out. Also, you can see where the activity times are. So that's lunchtime, and then after lunch, a lot of people came before nobody was there. So these are just fun times. So for the lessons learned while we're putting in all of these utilities, definitely the water and electric lines are the easiest. Our contractors, like I said, they've worked before on the reservation for years, so they just put one on top of the other, buried it up, and it was super easy. I went out and checked on them every day, made sure they had everything they needed. And then for our security system, again, also went in without which the contractors did a fantastic job putting them in one day. And while the perimeter is secure, getting high quality imagery kind of in this area and some of the farther reaches are not the best. So definitely check the contractor and see what they define high quality video as, because it might not be what you define high quality video as. With the automatic gate, this is the government command reader I was talking about. So you just tap that, opens the gate right up, and then it also logs who opens that gate. So we have a record of what government employees were going in and out of the transfer station. It was kind of complex due to the nature of it not being integrated with the proprietary, but our IT department is fantastic, and so they were able to fix the issues. And now I'm going to pass it off to Jeannie, and she's going to tell you guys about Safety Stratus.
Make sure that going. Okay, electronic waste tracking software. This was the other part of the hazardous waste grant that we did. It was through the EPA grant. We really were struggling with having paper forms. The forms would sometimes not make it, and sometimes there is just human error with transferring it to Excel, it's a lot of work. There was sometimes inconsistency with how the forms are being filled out. So we wanted something that was easy, collected data more consistently, and was faster for the attendant to fill out. And there also is a requirement for a very small quantity generator, anyone who creates a small amount of hazardous waste, to identify all of the hazardous waste. We'll go into that in the next slide. And it also, because of the isocyanates and other things that John mentioned, we wanted to control the type and the amount of possible hazardous waste that is being accepted. So very small quantity generators, it is a EPA classification. It is a requirement that all hazardous waste must be identified. With that, how you want to interpret that, we interpreted that as we know what we're accepting. To be a very small quantity generator, you have to generate less than 220 pounds per month. And that's about 20 gallons a piece, which is not that much, but household hazardous waste are excluded from that. So if the government was creating waste from trucks or things like that, that's a separate issue. Whereas if you're collecting household hazardous waste, when you do a cleanup, that's different. That's not under the 220 a month amount. But the reason why this is important, there you go. If you're a small quantity generator, that's if you're generating more than 220 pounds a month, but less than 2,200 pounds a month, you have to have hazardous waste in certain tanks and regulations. You have to have waste manifest. You must have an emergency response employee. There's just more regulatory things that you have to comply with if you're a larger in a larger category. So we wanted to make sure we didn't have to do that since the transportation is a relatively small operation. There we go. Okay, the software itself. It was a little bit of a struggle finding a software. I looked for a long time. I found a lot of softwares that were for larger facilities, for laboratories, for larger landfills, for large chemical operations, but really not anything more simple that would work for a small tribal transfer station like Rincon. We didn't want it too complicated, but we also didn't want it as simple. For example, Microsoft Forms we did think about using. It is included in the Microsoft 365 suite of software, but it doesn't have any cascading questions. That means that you have to write out every single question that you want to go through. So, for instance, if you had household hazardous waste, you would have to say, do you have heat? Do you have gasoline? Do you have this? Do you have this? And you have to go through, and it just would take too long. We figured that it would just be too onerous for the transfer station person checking it in. That was one of our requirements, is it needed to be faster and more efficient than the paper form. So we finally found Safety Stratus. That was a software company that specialized in hazardous waste and laboratory tracking. And they had a hazardous waste module that they were able to work with us on to adjust it. So we have a check-in form. There you can see that there's past forms. You can look up and see who dropped off what time. It was really important for us to have a list of tribal members and authorized millennials and authorized users as well. The Rincon Transfer Station is free for the tribal members and anyone who they authorize to drop off waste on behalf of them. So it's important that we limit, we know who's coming in, what they're dropping off, and that we're not, the tribe isn't taking on any extensive waste that there would just be a burden to the tribe to get rid of. And we also, our public works department was the one that was doing the reporting. It was a lot of work, or they have to enter everything in Excel, they would have to use these graphs they'd have to do, and it was just a lot of administrative burden on them. We wanted to have software that could streamline that. So I'm actually going to we do have the software that will show it to you. I'm going to do it at the end of the presentation rather than jumping back, just so you can keep this moving. But after we rolled out the software, before we rolled it out, we wanted to make sure that the tribal members knew what was going on, if there was any changes, so that they were on board and they knew that there were changes coming. We had a flyer that went out. This is the flyer on the left side. It had a question and answer, things that they might be concerned about. We mailed that out about a month before we started the electronic check-in. We also had it printed out to hand to people at the transfer station. We have a sign posted at the transfer station. This is a little bit new. Before there wasn't just a very strict sign or limits on yes, we accept this, no, we don't accept this. So there was a big aluminum sign on the side of the transfer station office saying yes, we accept this, no, we don't accept this. This kind of can reduce the amount of arguing that some of the people that are trying to drop off stuff. It's just we just point and say no, sorry. And staff training, that was also a really important thing. We wanted to make sure that the public works staff who were checking in, they're using the software, they're checking people in, they understood how to use the software, they understood, they just felt comfortable with it and they could ask questions. So we spent about an hour doing that. And of course, if anybody had follow-up questions, we would go work with them on that. Okay, we also had more outreach materials. This is a front and back flyer on the transfer station. There wasn't a whole lot of material that was out there that people could see, okay, well, I know when the transfer station is open, I know what's the requirements. A lot of people are finding or bringing in waste and unlabeled material, the unlabeled containers. They're some more unknowns, and we wanted to make sure we put that container requirement on there just to try and reduce that. Because unknowns are expensive to dispose of, as most of you know. And there's also alternatives, things that are not accepted at the Rincon Transfer Station. We had alternate locations and where you can take those as well. And we also had that what you do and do not accept was, again, reiterated on the back of that flyer. So we've been using the electronic system since June, so it's been successful. We've had a faster check-in speed. We have more data collected. We do have the one thing with the electronic system. It's automated into the software, so you would type in part of the tribal members name and it would show up. So you don't have misspelled names. It's all linked, and so you can see exactly who brought it in at what time. Whereas before they had a paper list that they would have to go through to see who was and was not authorized to use the transfer station. There's no more human error in transferring data, it's just directly into the software. The tracking of the household hazardous waste volumes and weights, that's something that we wanted because that was part of the EPA regulation. And where we don't have the scale, but we did estimate weights based on volumes, and I can go into that when we show the software. And let's see, we also have the reports. The reports are going good. They send us an email an automated email every month with a link to the website, and it shows automated graphs of what's been brought in. Okay, lessons learned. What are some things we learned through this process? It was really helpful to have a vision at a time of what the software checking system, what we wanted it to do, how we kind of laid out. I just maybe a Word document, just typed it all out, and gave it to the software company that, hey, can you automate this? And they had a much better idea of what we wanted versus going back and forth, and it just saves a lot of time. And I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. I talked to Public Works. I got their paper check-in form and basically turned that into the electronic system. I wanted to make sure that I understood their process, so I didn't change something that made sense to them, but I didn't realize that it was important. So there was close collaboration with Public Works. And also with the software, it's never going to be perfect to be exactly what you want unless you're doing something entirely from scratch. But there's as much as possible with the software company, it's just more expensive. Whereas Safety Strongest was a pre-made module that they could edit on a subscription basis. So for instance, the lookup system, we have authorized users linked to tribal members, and there can be authorized users for multiple tribal members, and it's important to know who's dropping off for which person. And there wasn't a system in the software that would allow you to create that link. And so we had to be creative, and we thought, okay, well, if we just did multiple user names for each of the authorized users, say authorized user for Mary Jo, authorized user, the same authorized user for Joe Smith. And that would be a way that we could track it that way. And make sure you're checking your software for errors. There's always going to be errors. The software company doesn't know the system as well as you do. And so just do some checks and make sure something isn't looking right. You go back and make sure that you fix it. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Camille, who's going to be talking about SWIFR, which is the next steps for this project.
Hi, I'm Camille Merchant. I'm the Environmental Director for the Rincon Band of the San Diego Indians. We're about an hour north of San Diego. Our next step is we're going to develop our transfer station. And we're doing it mostly with the SWIFR grant. And this is kind of a sketch of what we envision. Right now, we pretty much have a gravel area with I guess a ramp with the 40-yard bins underneath and a office. And the rest of what people drop off is basically on the ground or on, anyway, it's just out in the open. And we need to find a better way of storing it. So through SWIFR, we are going to take this area here and pave it and put roofing on it, so that it keeps the water out and the weights down, because most of this is charged by weight. And so we have metals, we have household hazardous waste, e-waste, tires, and composting. And composting is starting up, and that's going to be a new thing for us. And we did get a lot of contribution through GAP and through the tribal projects as well to enhance what we can do with, we went for the 1.5 million, but believe me, things are expensive. So we enhanced everything. We did as much as we could with this. So the first thing that we did here is, let's see here. Oops. Okay, so through our SWIFR grant, we are going to be putting in a modular wetland for filtering out the drainage before it's released, because we're pretty close to a creek that has endangered species. So we want to make sure that we're not causing toxicity. So that's going to be one of the first things that we do. and that's gonna be underground. We're gonna be purchasing equipment such as a horizontal grinder, which is like a cup grinder on its side. And this is gonna allow us to mulch gold spotted oak borer, infested oak tree wood, and green waste. And it'll also allow us to create media for composting. And we're going to be putting in a recycling trailer like this one here. And it's gonna live there. We wanna be more of a one-stop shop. We have a recycling trailer right now, and it is taken out to various neighborhoods to make it convenient for tribal members. But we also wanted to have the recycling at the transfer station. So people could bring everything in all at once. So this is, sorry, I'm trying to get in the way, but this is the horizontal grinder roughly. And then we're going to be putting in, we're going to be paving the area and putting in berms as secondary containment to prevent things from running off. And we're going to have the permanent cover, which is the roofing, to protect stored waste from the sun and the rain. And our goals are to improve the local facility, to reduce the need to drive all the way down to either the dump or a larger transfer station. Establish a recycling hub that is more robust than what we have presently. And we're going to be starting composting, and we'll have a local mulching hub as well, so the mulch can be used for landscaping or for composting and for erosion prevention. There's also carbon sequestration in that the composting will, we're going to have the aerobic composting of wood rather than the anaerobic deterioration in the landfill. And so and greater energy efficiency and reduced greenhouse gases through the waste diversion and fewer waste disposal trips, because we're going to be taking our green waste and our composting organic waste, and that's not going to be trucked out to the landfills. And we're protecting the nearby stream and our groundwater, which is very shallow. So that's important too. We don't want to be creating a toxic flow that can impact our groundwater. So some of the other programs that we have going are, we're going to be creating a composting area that's going to be going to have concrete pad. IHS is right now installing additional household hazardous waste cabinets, and they're installed on concrete pads. So we'll be able to separate our wastes, and we are going to be putting safety gates and signage at the top of the ramp so that people can't fall in. And also so that we can label the various areas and people will know where to drop off. And let's see, what else are we doing? Those are the major things, anyway.
That's okay. Awesome. So I'm gonna get the other part set up, but while we're doing that, if anybody has any questions, that would be great.
Yeah, great presentation, Christian Sets with Samoa. What's the footage size of the transfer station now right now? What's the?
Is it set up with online? Cool.
Beforehand, for anybody that's online.
And then another question, for the installation of the water and electric, was there environmental reports that had to be done prior to any groundbreaking activities? And if so, how was that? Was that funded through grants? Direct funds?
They get it.
Okay.
We did it as well as the Cultural Resource Department for Cultural Resources. They did They have monitored, so if they hit anything, it tells us how.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is there an annual fee for that security system?
Yes.
Okay. And that's funded through that grant or?
Yeah, we managed to get 5 years, so we're good for a while, but we'll probably have to renew it through, tribal funds.
Thank you.
You, sir, in the back. You're sitting right to your right.
Great presentation, thank you. A couple quick questions about the security system, especially for the video surveillance camera technology. What's the cost of that? Is it a subscription based, as you said? You guys are doing it for 5 years.
Yes, it is subscription based. I don't actually remember off the top of my head.
We didn't have to worry about it because it was also the same system that the rest of the security at the tribe uses. So it becomes incorporated into the rest of the larger system. And so they pick up the fees, but I'm sure it is. The subscription based, good luck in finding anything that's not subscription based.
Actually, if it's okay, we can do questions at the end. Let me just go through the software real quick, and then if anybody has other questions, we'll go ahead and do that right after. Okay, so safety status, you can see they have been branded everywhere. So this is just a mock-up version. The one that Rincon has the Rincon logo, and it does have tribal member information. That's why we have a mock software to share with you. There's a whole bunch of things on the left-hand side. Is really new waste record is the main important thing. This is where you're entering the waste. This is done by the transfer station staff who's checking it in. So let's see, you type in a name, so it's Halloween. We'll do Mike Myers. You can attach a photo ID. We require anyone who's an authorized user to show the tribal member the tribal member that they're dumping waste on behalf of, and their own driver's license as well. Vehicle plate number. And this is what I was talking about with cascading questions. So for instance, used tires, that drops down and you can say how many tires, the type of tires, if they're car, truck, or ATV, that does factor in the cost. Truck tires are more expensive than car tires to dispose of. And if you have a rim or no rim, that's also factors and costs. So these are the categories that we chose. This was based off of what Public Works already had been using. I think I streamlined a couple of them. We didn't want to go crazy with getting all sorts of different categories because we did not want to slow them down. So the hazardous waste one, household hazardous waste, that's the one that's more complicated. So it has a bunch of drop-down menus, cleaning products, spray cans, paint, things like that. So for instance, if I clicked paint or lacquer, you would put the number. And this is the only part where we're estimating weight based on volume. So say there's 2 1-gallon cans of paint. If the software has an estimate basically of for 1 gallon how much pounds that is for paint, and we're not assuming that the paint container is full. We're assuming 25%. So that's all built into the system. We don't need to have the transfer station staff doing any kind of calculations or math or anything like that. We wanted it really, really streamlined. And let me show the reporting.
Yeah, we have the barcodes as well.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. So we have pre-printed barcodes that are weather resistant. They have numbers on them. They would basically just go back here real quick.
down at the scan code, we have a barcode scanner. They would put a sticker on each of the containers of the hazardous waste. They would scan it, the code would be entered into here, and that's a way of knowing exactly which container of paint or oil was dropped off at one point. So we know if there's some things that are getting really old, we should go ahead and dispose of them. This is an example of the software reporting. So this is, of course, just the mock site, so it's not real data. But for August, say that there's 49 people that use a transfer station. You can see who the top number of people who've made the most drop-offs and their names. Tribal members dropping off versus authorized users or government staff. The type of waste. Things like tires, appliances, electronic waste, furniture, different types of furniture and how much, hazardous waste drop off. And then this is at the bottom, this is where they calculate, or the totals for weights are shown as well, where we're saying propane and how much weight that would be. And there's also a limit at the bottom where we want to make sure we're under the amount for the total household hazardous waste. And this will show us how much we are, what percentage that we have until we reach that. And there's a date range up at the top. You can scroll and see, you can look just for the month, you can look for the year. And so that's a great way to see what is currently at the transfer station or how you've been collecting waste over the entire year. Okay, so any more questions?
Megan Pop Margaret with the Pajama Band of Indians. This is so cool. Good job, you guys. I have a number of questions. First of all, is the safety stratus software, is it like an annual license that has to be renewed?
It is an annual license. It's interesting. So they did this knowing that it was kind of a pilot project and that our tribes might be interested in it. And the price that they gave us, I think they dropped it. And so hopefully it's going to be less expensive. But yes, it is an annual subscription. If you just go to the CP Stratus software or just search it on Google and then send them an email, they'd be more than happy to talk to you. But we put that into the grant. We could, I think, 5 years, and then maybe we'll find other grants to pay for that.
If you were going to ballpark annual cost, what would you say?
We paid $7,000.
For 5 years?
I know it's pricey for 1 year. But they are reducing that. They said that a lot of tribes were kind of bulking at that price. So we testified in that we had that isocyanides that was $16,000 to dispose of. If we're using the software and that's preventing more waste like that coming in, that's a value to the tribe. So that's kind of how we justify it.
Sweet, thank you. Earlier in your presentation, you had a photo of tractor tires or like skid steer tires. We have those. I don't know how to get rid of them. What did you do with those?
So hard.
So I did finally find somebody that was willing to take them. However, our general contractor was like, hey, these look pretty damn good to me. And he took them himself. So that's how we got rid of the tire. But we live in the same area. I'll send you the name of the people who took our stuff.
Okay, Rad, thank you. I appreciate that. And then I was curious if you have a recommendation for the type of eye wash station you get. That one looks rugged enough to last in the full sun, so I was wondering if there's a specific brand that you guys decided to go with.
I believe that one's global industrial. I just scoured online for one that had a lid because like most of our transfer stations, I'm sure that you guys have a lot of dust and stuff. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't clogging up the eye wash station. And when somebody needs to use it, they're just getting mud in their face or something like that, you know. So definitely just find something with a lid. Global industrial is what we went with, but there's plenty of other options out there. We're just looking at. I think it's around $500. So not too bad.
Thank you.
Thanks. Question about the training you guys all have access to. Do you guys build the cost of the training, like SWIFR, for instance, into your SWIFR grant application, or is it just covered under overhead?
We use Hazwalker under, we didn't train any of the attendants in Hazwalker.
Right, but just your staff, your normal staff, right? So the-
Yeah, us three were trained through for Hazwalker.
One of the reasons for the barcodes is so we can track from the time that the container enters the facility to the time it's disposed of too. That was kind of the thinking behind why do the barcode system.
Sorry, and a very bureaucratic question. Does your software app, does it also take care of your work requirements? Like where you always scan reports that have to go in, like DTSC and, or?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, does the software that you're using, the app, cloud-based app, does that also take care of your reporting requirements to government agencies, like to recycle or to
Oh,
DTSC?
we don't have the requirements for reporting, especially since we're keeping into this very small waste generator category. That's not to say that we can't use this data. That's part of the reason why we're collecting it. So that we can see if there's someone who's having a whole lot of tires, we need to go talk to them and make sure that they can't do that anymore.
To answer your question again, we also have an automated report that is sent to our emails. So we, in theory, could send that to the agency that needed to review.
Like that.
Real quick, I just remembered, the software, we don't have a payment program for the transfer station, but the software, that was one of the reasons why we started, is they do have the ability to have a built-in payment system, if that's needed.
John Katz from EPA, but just a quick question following up on what you just said. First was, does your hazardous waste hauler, do they use any of the information the software generates to characterize, or do they just do their own thing because they have to then, as a hauler, they have to report on RCRA to what they're hauling, what they're getting rid of. That was one. And then the other is, maybe I haven't had it long enough, but have you been able to look at the data and see, well, what kind of things are coming in? And is there anything you can do in terms of outreach or education to reduce the amount coming from tribal members, whether it's particularly problematic chemicals or pesticides or whatever? Have you had that option yet?
So for your first question, first question again?
Connecting with your hauler and what they
Okay,
report.
sure, yeah, I remember. No, they do it all by themselves because they're logging it in individually. We would like them to scan out the barcodes, but they're not using our software for it. I'm sure we could provide them the template, the report, and it'd be easier for them, but at the same time, they have to go through and identify, unknowns and everything, so they're gonna get down to the with it anyway. As for the second part of your question,
Like tracking what kinds of things are coming in and moving upstream and seeing if you can educate or work on prevention.
we've noticed that there's been a lot less coming in since the electronic tracking software has been implemented. Like we used to have a lot more household hazardous waste, a lot more unknowns, and now we have a lot less of that because people aren't able to, skim under the radar. So.
But that's absolutely one of the reasons why we wanted this electronic tracking system, so that we could look at the data and see trends and see if there's any outreach or if there's more programs, if there's a lot of the specific type of waste that people are dropping off that we can tailor a future environmental program.
How much staff time is allocated to the management of the transfer station? It sounds like it's a split between environmental and public works, or how does that?
Yeah, there's currently just a single public works attendant that is checking when people in. And that's another reason why it's important to kind of gatekeep and make sure they know what's being taken in, because they'll check people in and then the people who are dropping off the waste will just go drop it off. So that's important to know what they're bringing in. The environmental department deals with the disposal of the household hazardous waste, and we figure out how to dispose of these weird and wonderful things that show up at the transfer station. But other than that, it's pretty low maintenance, and the transfer station is only open Thursdays and Saturdays, so it's limited window.
There are backup operators, but there is one permanent attendant at the transfer station. But we did train probably about 4 or 5 different people. Yeah, or a little bit more, but we had a training session, so more people understand how to use it, so if they do have to put somebody in case their primary attendant's ill or not working that day, they can still put somebody in there who knows how the software works. And we do a lot of the tires, the e-waste, so in addition to the household hazardous waste, we do the tires, the e-waste, now the composting is gonna start up. And what else do we do in there? Paint and oil. And so, yeah, they still do green waste, they still do municipal waste and metal and sometimes some light goods around the ramp and the 40-yard roll-offs.
Thank you.
I was kind of curious about the need for the license plate reader, since only authorized users can use the transfer station. What is the purpose of the license plate reader?
When people sneak in.
Even with a locked gate?
It's been, I don't think it's gonna be an issue anymore, but it was an issue once until we got our tire enterprise guy. So,
Good job.
All right, only 2 more.
Awesome.
Yeah, good job.
Sounded good.